Computerized Start is brought to you by my awesome patrons on Patreon, and by your tips and memberships on Ko-fi. These and other channel supporters make my live streams possible. You too can become a channel supporter with tiers starting at just $1. And as always, thank you for all your support, including sharing, chatting, liking, and subscribing. Now roll that famous logo animation! Good evening, and welcome back to Computerized Start Live, the show where I try not to mangle my computers, but make them work. All right, let's see who we have in the chat. Eric's Edge, yes, it is often, but not always bad capacitors. Dave's Vintage Apple Tech. Retro Techie, yes, it does need a battery. Rudy from Rudy's Retro Intel, hello. Here, Trina's Technobabble, greetings. Working down the chat. Jeremy's Vintage Hillbilly Shack, hi Jeremy. Retro Tech Chris is here. Garth Beagle. Eric. I cannot read your last name. Welcome. Thomas Armstrong and Retro Fox. Welcome, everybody. Yes, the opportunity presented itself, and I have started early so that you all have some entertainment. Because what would our Thursday night be without our live streams? And quite honestly, I thought I might need more time. So when the Mac Yak crew had to cancel their live stream, I extended mine. Because I can't compete with them, but I can certainly try to fill in their vacancies in terms of them not streaming. Anyways, while I try to open up this wonderful package I just got from Mouser, I'd like to remind everyone to please smash that like button and click subscribe, because if you're not subscribed, like 46% of my viewers according to YouTube, you can't participate in the chat. Also, you're not guaranteed to know when I go live next. Also interesting, some of the other statistics I saw too. But not nearly as interesting as the subscriber statistics. So, anyways, I have on the workbench my 386 that is not cooperating, and apparently I have a camera that my camera's... Oh, hold on. I forgot to hit a button on my camera here, or the light in front of my camera, which I think's driving it crazy. There we go. I think my camera's having trouble with the fact of the different color temperatures of the two lights on my workbench. Yes, I am laying down the law. Also, I would like to let everyone know that I do accept tips by Ko-fi. I did forget to update my goal, but tips from Ko-fi help me get cool things like this board here, which I bought because I thought I might be able to use it, but also because I was browsing archive.org, noticed that someone had archived an older version of this ROM, and this board I could clearly see in the eBay auction had a newer version number. So I'll be archiving this ROM because it's apparently version 7 and not version 4. So, yes. Also, let's see here. Yes, also I have lots of other parts here. I have capacitors. I have lots of other parts here in this bag for another project that I'm sure I'll live stream on soon enough. These are all 74 series logic chips. And in fact, if I was thinking I would actually go set those with the computer. Those are for right now, but instead I'll set them to the side where I'm sure I will knock them off the workbench and mix them up. But I have my trusty, and by trusty I mean I bought it on eBay because it looked cool. 386 board here. It's got my oh, you can't see it because my head's in the way. It's got the Cyrix Fast Math 40 megahertz 386DX. Right now I have 4 megs of RAM in it, 128K of cache. This controller card that didn't match the eBay picture. Foreshadowing my 8-bit video card, and a lovely adapter that converts ATX power to AT power. And I also broke down and bought the biggest toggle switch that I could find at the hardware store that was plastic, so that I can do things like this to turn it on. Although I wish it was a IBM power supply switch, because those really have quite the satisfying click when you turn them on and off. Oh, also it does usually help to plug in the keyboard before powering up the computer. Otherwise you get keyboard errors. But before I start repairing this motherboard, I thought I would review what it is doing, or at least the quicker to review part. So, this computer has an interesting problem as configured. Jeremy's asking, is there a white wire going into the adapter? No, I see a gray wire. I presume the white wire is negative 5 volts because the label on this power supply does not say that it supplies negative 5 volts. So, anyways, if you try to start Windows by typing Win and hitting Enter, you will see the splash screen, and then you will see the DOS prompt. That was so fast, I will... Oh, and then if you try to relaunch it again, the computer hangs. The computer really hangs. Reset button hangs. Also, if you try to install Windows 95, it'll start to load the installer, and then, well, yeah, take this as a hint, stop using Windows. But Trina, some of the best games were only available for Windows. Try booting with extensions off. Well, DOS has no extensions, therefore extensions are off. Now, if you meant try booting with hitting F5 to not process config sys and autoexec.bat. Oh, also there is a... Oh, actually I had left it on. There, let me turn it back on again. I will show you here. Okay, if I start without loading anything in the config sys or autoexec.bat file, and I try to start Windows, well, tell me bad command or file name, and if I then try to start Windows, it will tell me that himem.sys is not running. So yeah, I actually do have to run what is in the config sys to start Windows. So, yeah, that's a good reference, Jeremy. But in this case, I knew negative 5 volts wasn't present because of the label on the power supply. It just isn't listed. So, all right. Well, yeah. I guess if the chat wants to Well, actually, first I'm going to reboot with loading the path so that I don't drive myself crazy. Hey, 1-Bit Fever Dreams. Some of the best DOS games. I'll get to that at some point. Let's see here. And actually, Chris, you can tell from my config.sys that I have attempted a few of the troubleshooting steps that the EMM 386 help suggests, such as if your system doesn't work right, exclude all of the upper memory. And if that really doesn't work, try double buffering Smart Drive. So I can actually get rid of setver. Well, I don't even know what that does. That's a default thing. DOS equals. Well, actually, I think. Let me get rid of these because these are troubleshooting things I tried that didn't do anything. I excluded those regions because the DOS help said that I should. Actually, let me, I turned off the, yeah, I could have just rimmed them out, but I don't, double buffering smart drives not required for most computers. Well, I didn't want expanded memory. Why did it install expanded memory? I told it no EMS. And yeah, that's what it does. It still does it. So, actually, Chris, the one thing I haven't let on yet, except for my channel supporters, is I actually do have an idea of what the problem is. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I actually have found two things that will let this computer work. And none of them are none of them are software. So yeah, just using stock VGA, Garth. Swapping RAM does not make a difference. There are two items that I could swap, and I actually got it to work. But I sold this live stream one. Are the capacitors bad? And they very well could be bad. But I guess since I've already spilled the beans, there are two things I have done that made this work. So, item number one. If I put, yeah, I was actually running memtest. It ran for 26 cycles and then it locked up. But it locked up on the video memory test, which I had disabled. So I think there's a bug in the version of Checkit I was running. All right. If I put this ROM chip in place of this ROM chip, I can actually get Windows to start. Now you're probably thinking, what could be on that ROM chip? Item number two. With the original ROM, if I put this controller card in, which I actually only received yesterday, if I put this controller card in place of the one I have in it, Windows will start. So now, oh, bye, Rudy. So, could it still be bad capacitors? I don't know. But it's actually looking like the recap will just be because they're cheap capacitors that might be affecting stability. But one of these two items fixes the problem. Now, what is on this ROM? Well, this is the Mr. BIOS ROM for a UMC 410 motherboard. Yes, Mr. BIOS. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, now, wait a minute, Justin. That doesn't look like a UMC chipset. That looks like a SARC chipset. And you'd be right. That is a SARC RC4018A4 chipset, not a UMC chipset. However, I did some sleuthing over the past week. Retro Techie, my middle name is Danger. You should know that by now. As in, I am a danger to computers sometimes. I have done some sleuthing because I was determined to see if I could find an updated BIOS for this computer, because I was really beginning to suspect it was the BIOS somehow, some way. And actually, no, my middle name's not really Danger, but well, that is not for that is not important for this live stream. What is important is Mr. BIOS on their website, because there's a cached version of their website. Mr. BIOS did have a BIOS for some of the other SARC chipsets, but not for this one, which had me bummed. But then I went to thinking, wait a minute, you know, I don't know how long SARC made chipsets, because at some point they kind of disappeared, because I don't really remember seeing any 486 chipsets from SARC. I certainly don't remember seeing any Pentium chipsets from SARC, and really definitely never saw anything even later than that from them. So I'm like, okay, either they went out of business or they got acquired. So luckily, I found out from DOS days that it was suspected that UMC bought SARC. So then I got to thinking, okay, did UMC relabel this chipset as something else after they acquired them? To which, of course, there's no data that they did that. But there was one interesting thing that I happened to see on the RetroWeb's website for this motherboard. So let me pull that up. Let's see here. Let me pull this motherboard up. It is a, let's see here. It is a, I forgot to bring up the link before the stream. It is a 4018A4 search. Uh-oh. Oops. All right, this is the PC Chips M326 motherboard. Yep, that looks right. Anyways, so I happened to notice something while I was browsing the RetroWeb, while I was sleuthing. And let me see here. So here's what they say about this motherboard. So unfortunately, well, they do have a download available, which this download does not match my motherboard. So maybe I should have burned this to a ROM and looked to see what it did. But I noticed something very peculiar about this post string. It said UMC 491. And that's when I got to thinking, well, maybe there was a UMC chipset with that name, and maybe that's what the post-SARC acquisition chipset was. So I went to the list, UMC, chipsets, started to scroll the list of chipsets, and kind of started looking. Actually, I think I looked at another place. So I looked here and I was like, no, I don't see any chipsets in this list that are called the 410. But that's not to say that oh, hold on. Oh, well, anyways, I don't have the bookmark. I got the bookmark on Mac. Anyways, I happened to look at the Mr. BIOS list of all the BIOSes that people have found for Mr. BIOS. And actually, Mr. BIOS had some that were called, for a chipset, UMC 410. So that's when I realized, well, let me see what BIOSes are available. And there was one. And I burned it, and there it is. So, before you say, well, actually, I got to remove the ROM. So, just the original ROM, which I have made an image of, and I'm going to send it to the RetroWeb for their archives, because even though there's a problem with running Windows on that version. But lo and behold, Mr. BIOS, version 1.5 UMC 410. So let me, one nice thing about this BIOS is, oh, nope, 08. Look at this. I can just type the time. Isn't this wonderful? Oh, hold on. I don't have to use page up and page down to scroll it like the original BIOS. The date? 01/26/2023. Look at that. I didn't have to hit page up, page down to select it. This is great. All right, I think that's the only setting I really need to change. Nope, I do need to change this. Type 47 cylinders, 1980. 1986. Heads is 16. Sectors is 63. And all right, I believe that is the correct settings. Boot sequence. Yeah, I think this looks cache, shadow. All right, I think function 10. All right, so while we wait, hey, look at that. That booted fast. And this thing is just proved me a liar. This was working the other day. Let me restart it. Bad controller card. Of course, we changed the config sys and auto-exec bat, which might have broken it. Well, anyways, okay, so that didn't do it. All right, well, I'm gonna leave that BIOS in for now. So let me put this controller card. Yeah, just watch. I got each of these to work once, and neither of these is going to work tonight, which means I will recap the motherboard anyways, because that's what I get for testing things, just to make sure that I have a viable stream. When I got this controller card, I put it in too, and it fixed it. But I had the original BIOS in. This Mr. BIOS fixed it the first time, but maybe I missed a setting when I set up the BIOS. There we go. So let's see here. Oh, congratulations, Retro Techie, for 401 subs. I'm stuck right above 200 right now. Okay. Yeah, it's a PC chips motherboard. That explains everything. Yeah, that also explains why they put capacitors that have gold foil wrappers on them that are probably cheaper than the cheapest capacitors. Yeah, they were a low-cost leader. Mr. BIOS actually, I guess, released BIOSes that fixed problems from manufacturers' BIOSes. And I sure thought I had this working with the Mr. BIOS, but, well, I had unrealistic settings in the config sys and auto-exec bat at the time, I think, so probably I didn't really have it fixed. I probably had it half fixed by having so much memory excluded that it probably ran. Yeah, PC Chips was one of the ones putting fake cache chips on motherboards. Yep, it wouldn't surprise me if they were using pirated award BIOSes. It also wouldn't surprise me that they would use chipsets that might actually be emulating other chipsets. So, oh, come on. The chat's being mean to me. I'm trying to catch up on chat. Well, Eric, just kind of sit back and listen and watch. But if you do need to take a stretch break on your eyes, I feel it. I don't think I could stare at a computer for 11 hours. Got to zap the PRAM. I think I need to check the BIOS settings on the Mr. BIOS. Old tech is flaky by design, yeah. DOS shell over Windows 3.1, yeah, DOS shell is pretty nice. So, anyways, well, but I did get Windows to run, even if the Mr. BIOS didn't fix it, although I'm going to check my... Interestingly enough, to get into the setup from Mr. BIOS, you hit you have a cold boot, and then you can get into the Mr. BIOS setup. And I think it's the escape key, not the delete key. All right, let me check the settings, because I may have had one of these wrong. But we'll get to board repairs here in just a moment. So if you're here for board repairs, don't worry. I am just about to do board repairs. Although it is cool, the Mr. BIOS, even though you don't configure the serial and COM ports from the BIOS because they're on a jumper set on the controller card, it will tell you they're installed. In fact, it's pretty cool. The summary tells you what you don't configure, but it sees installed, as well as what you've got configured. So, shows you I got 2 serial ports and a parallel port on the controller card. Okay, security is disabled, system speed is high. Cache is enabled. And let me see, maybe I'm shadowing something I shouldn't be. System is shadowed. Video is shadowed. Okay. And it also sees that I don't have any expansion ROMs in those slots. DMA clock, AT clock divided by 2. I think that looks right. Okay. Memory wait states, refresh period, force. Okay, well, it does appear as if maybe the one time I got it to run with Mr. BIOS was a fluke. Because maybe the thing is, whatever was causing it to not run, maybe is most of the time, but I'm actually suspecting this controller card, maybe it has something wrong with it. Because I thought I was buying one that had 2 chips on it, and this one has 1. Anyways, whatever. I guess sometimes you can't trust eBay sellers when they say, these items are similar. You'll receive something similar to what's pictured, yeah. I don't know that I received something similar to what's pictured. All right. So let's get to some repairs here. So I have a few things that I need to do to this board. So first of all, it needs recapped. So it's got all these gold capacitors. I can't see a name brand on them. They probably aren't a name brand. They're probably just gold wrapped to make you think it looks expensive, but they're probably cheap as probably the cheapest thing they could find, and they got an extra 10% discount, and then I'm sure whoever they got them from subbed something even more cheap to replace what they thought they were buying. I don't know. Yeah. One thing I am going to do is there are a couple of main filter caps that, if I can figure out which ones are the main filter caps on the main voltage rails, I am actually going to replace them with a slightly larger capacitor than the original, because this board is so cheap. It has all the same value capacitor on it, which doesn't seem right to me. Yep, you've got it, Jeremy. Oh, the caps aren't the issue, Trina, so no bet. But, well, they might be affecting stability, but they're not why Windows wasn't running. Because something's causing this computer to crash if I run a memory test long enough. I don't think it's the RAM. Anyways, I think these are the two caps that I'm on. If they are actually on the main, right off the power supply, I'm actually going to replace them. Well, Chris, I don't know that I would call it working, because something is causing it to crash after I let the memory test run on an extended memory test. So, well, okay, maybe you all are going to convince me that I shouldn't. I was kind of afraid of breaking it if I did replace caps. Okay, well, there is another repair I am doing, and it's not negotiable because I'm tired of setting up settings every time I turn this board on. I am going to replace the battery with a Vardo replacement. There are a few logic chips on this board, and there's no way you're going to convince me to remove them to see if they're causing the problem, because they're between two of the ISA slots. Well, there's one here, and there's three here, and they're not socketed. Those are the extent of the logic chips. All right, I guess you all have convinced me. Replacing the capacitors is a bad idea. It probably will cause damage to the board. There is something causing a stability problem, though. There are tantalums on the board, but I don't think there's anything wrong with them because there's no shorts on the board. But I am still going to replace the fact that the battery's missing. So, well, actually, okay, so I think the extent of the tantalums on this board are, well, you know, I'm actually not sure those are tantalums, quite honestly. I don't know how to tell if they're tantalums or if they're actually ceramics that are packaged to look like tantalums. So you tell me, is that a tantalum or is that a ceramic that looks like a tantalum? I mean, that's not to say that they didn't put a few tantalums where it really mattered, because there's a few more of those. There are actually ceramic capacitors on the board. But yeah, there's one tantalum there by the keyboard controller. Okay, it looks like there's well, if it's a tantalum, I'm not totally convinced that they're tantalums in a cheap board, but maybe they are. There's two here. There's several here. And then there's one there. Yeah, Well, Jeremy, this board does have another problem, and it's kind of the other reason why I wanted to replace the capacitors. This board often won't do anything the first time you turn it on. I often have to turn it off and then back on again, which tells me that there might actually be a bad capacitor somewhere. Yeah, I know, they're bad until they're not. I'm honestly thinking that those are possibly ceramics that were made to look like tantalums. I mean, let's examine the evidence. The capacitors, this electrolytic capacitors are cheap. Yeah, they're decoupling caps, but I think they're I think they're coated ceramics more likely. Oh, okay. So I'm not going to replace the electrolytic caps, but what I am going to do, because I'm tired of reconfiguring things every time I turn this computer on, because it's error prone, is I'm going to install a Varda battery replacement board on this board, and I have 3 to take a look at. And I'm actually glad Jeremy's here in the chat, because I think he'll probably be interested to see the I think there's a revision opportunity for his board. Jeremy, here there is a problem with. I did kind of want to use yours, but there's a problem on this board in that it physically will not fit. The pin spacing is. It looks like the pin spacing on your board is for one of the larger Varda batteries. So this will not fit in place. So I'd be glad to send you the pin spacing for this battery, because I think there are a bunch of boards that used a smaller Varda battery, and there's just not. Yeah, there's not enough room. Now, some boards I've seen there's enough room to fit these. I think it was a larger Varda battery, but in this case, the battery was between the keyboard connector and the BIOS chip. So, yeah, well, the other thing is, if I put this on at an angle, then it's going to potentially interfere with plugging in the power connector. So, anyways, so what I'm going to use is one of these smaller, not a Varda boards. But I'm not going to use the one I'd rather use. So, now there is one thing I do like about your board, Jeremy. How long is which one? I'll send you dimensions later. No, I don't have the battery, but I can try to figure. I think the dimensions are a comment on one of my previous live streams. Okay, there is one thing I do like about your board, Jeremy. So Jeremy's board uses these Keystone brand CR2032 holders, and these are pretty cheap. In fact, they were cheap enough. I ordered 10 of them. Let me see. Oh, of course, the packing list doesn't say how much I paid for them. That would have been too easy. Okay. Yours are supposed to be 1/2 inch by 0.75 inch. All right, Jeremy. So your board, if it was supposed to be So your board as exported was, well, 3/4 of an inch by, well, about 1 1/4, 1.3 inches. So maybe I didn't have the latest Gerber file, but I sent the Gerber file that I received. So, oh, I'm being asked for the metric units. That'd be 19.45 millimeters by 33.1 millimeters. But for the record, I was giving them in the dimensions that the board designer had given me his dimensions in. So the ones that I'm going to use are actually, they're about 22 millimeters by, well, I mean, I think the battery holder is larger than the board because it's about 6.5 millimeters. So I don't know what that is in cubits. So, but yeah, Jeremy picked a CR2032 holder that is like cheap. It was actually pleasantly cheap. So hopefully when I get a version that's small enough to install, I'll give it a try. Also, Jeremy, I might recommend see if the battery holder fits the footprint. Okay, well, I can do that for you. Okay. Does the battery holder fit the footprint? Yes. The battery holder does fit the footprint. There is one other suggestion, Jeremy, and there might be a better diode to use on your board, but keeping it through, it's not a through hole part though, so I do appreciate being able to use through holes. But yeah, the battery holder fits the part, and I think there would be room here to have a battery holder that was up on end. So yeah, that actually fits. So there's another project, not a Varda, and they actually have 2 different versions. So one of them takes a CR1220 battery, and the other takes a CR2032. Yeah, if you resend it, I'll have some more made and try it. So, oh, well, that's annoying. Okay, here's the annoying thing. So this not a Varda, on their BOM, they have a different battery holder listed on their BOM. And I pulled the data sheet for the battery holder on their BOM, and the pinout was not close on the data sheet. It was so far off, I bought their battery holder. Their battery holder was like at least twice the price of the one Jeremy picked. Oh, this will be funny if their battery... Okay. And the annoying thing is, I looked at the data sheet, and the dimensions in the data sheet for this more expensive battery holder, the dimensions on their data sheet indicated that this battery holder would not fit the same footprint. So this other vendor's data sheet, not only is their battery holder more expensive, their data sheet is wrong. Double boo. So I ended up spending like, yeah, these battery holders were so expensive that I only bought 3 of them, and that was because I didn't want to have only one. And it looks like those were unnecessary because their data sheet was wrong. Oh, I know I looked at that data sheet and I know it said that this cheaper battery holder wouldn't fit. Anyway, I'm going to use the cheaper battery holder. I'm also probably going to submit an issue to this Notavarta's. I'm going to submit a GitHub defect for them, and I'm going to point out that the oh, wait a minute. I think I might have just noticed the problem. Wait a minute. Did I just notice the problem? Are the polarity... No, okay. Nope, the polarities are the same. All right. Yeah, I'll submit a defect to the Notavarta GitHub, and I'll let them know that there's a cheaper battery holder that fits their board, and that maybe they might update their BOM to include the cheaper battery holder as a compatible substitute. But yeah. So anyways, so this Notavarta board, you might be saying, wow, this looks pretty small. Where's the diode? Well, now this is the part I'm not going to enjoy as much. Because hold on. Oh, of course, I would have misplaced the hold please. Well, I try to find the components that I have now misplaced again. Oh, nope, that's not them. I actually misplaced them and came home at lunch just to find them. Oh, here it is. So this Notavarta board uses a surface mount diode, yes. But there's a reason why they picked this diode, and it's because these are actually, I think they call them ideal diodes. So they're actually a hot swap voltage controller. And these have a very, very low voltage drop. Smaller than the Schottky diodes I found that would have gone on this board. All right, see you later, Garth. So, I thought I was going to have to use the CR1220 version and have to wait till tomorrow or whenever I get my Amazon shipment for batteries, but it looks like I can use one of these. And yeah, I'm going to use a voltmeter just to double check that well, actually, I'm going to look at the traces here just to make sure that these are going. Oh. I'll have to look at the pin out of the... All right, so anyways, I think it's time to make one of these, because I want to fix my 386 board. And if anyone's wondering why in the world I have this board on a Dremel box, it's because it's so I didn't have to pull the brackets off of all the cards I put in it. The Dremel box was handy. All right. These are well, not as easy to build as some of the things I build, but well, I can't always do the easy stuff. In fact, not replacing those capacitors is probably the harder thing, because I know that at some point I will have to replace them, because they'll probably be but for now I won't, unless I can prove that one of them's bad. All right, so let me see if I can Well, yeah, if I never turned the computer off, I wouldn't have to reconfigure, but I can't help to think that the reason why it doesn't power up every time is because maybe it's looking for a voltage on the battery rail. I don't know. I don't like setting the clock each time. And there are some pretty odd CMOS settings that I might need to set, especially if I end up realizing that Mr. BIOS isn't totally compatible. So anyways, I am going to use a little bit of flux on this board to help things flow. I am going to put this on. Probably going to wish I had a microscope out to do this. Actually, that does look like a pretty good alignment there. All right. And the reason I put flux on the board is because I'm going to do put the solder on the soldering iron. Remember that I would like to absorb the smoke, and then I'm going to solder on one of the legs. Just like that. And then I'm going to put a little more solder on the soldering iron. Turn this around. And get an opposing pin. And then I'm going to I think I got enough solder on my soldering iron. Tack the other pins on, and there we go. I believe that is one successfully soldered diode. And now that I've got the diode in circuit, I will check continuity here. That's interesting. Huh. Hey, Frank, welcome. Well, maybe I didn't get it soldered because or maybe I need to go to diode mode. Maybe that's the... Okay, so I'm on diode mode now. Let me see what the voltage drop is. Well, that's interesting. Huh. Oh, that's interesting. I am not seeing the expected result from this component. I may have to look at the data sheet. Well, I guess there's one way to tell if this is working correctly. And I may regret doing this, but maybe the way this device works, maybe I need to actually put the CR2032 on it and measure voltage, because maybe this charge controller requires because it's actually a charge controller, so maybe I can't just simply diode check it. Well, I could probably remove the battery holder easily enough if I find out that I managed to put a bad component on that board. Wouldn't be the first time that I managed to put a bad component on by luck of the draw. In fact, I think a couple weeks ago when I worked on an LC power supply, I think I managed to figure out I had a bad resistor out of the box. Okay, so I've just put a CR2032 in this board. Positive to positive, negative to negative. And if this board is working the way I think it should be, I should measure probably be right under 3 volts. Oh, it's a brand new battery. 3.28 volts. Okay, and if I put this on backwards, then I actually probably shouldn't read anything because I think the diode will... Negative 3.28. Oh. That doesn't make any sense. So I can measure voltage. All right, let me look at the data sheet for this chip because it's not behaving the way I thought it would. All right. I do want to make sure that that diode is working correctly before I put it on the board, because I do know that that board will try to charge the battery because it was originally made for a NiCad. So let me I think the quickest way to do this is to log into my Mouser account. Instead of trying to transpose the part number of this chip into the search field. Oh, hey, Doc. Actually, that was pretty good, Doc. I just got caught by surprise. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, there's something up about this charge controller, the way it works. Because, and this is why I'm saying that, because this is actually a ultra tiny micro power 1 amp ideal diode with ultra low voltage drop. But it's also a charge controller. you test between one outer terminal and the middle one, you should find 3.3 volts and then 0, right? Let me look the pin out of this thing. Oh. Okay. Oh, this is weird. When disabled, it blocks voltages up to 6 volts in either direction. When disabled. Oh, wow, this is an interesting chip. Okay, when forward biased and enabled, it conducts with as little as 85 millivolts of voltage drop while carrying currents as high as 1 amps. So, disabled. Let me look at the pin out of this thing. I think I see how this thing's working. I just need to look the pin out. Okay, so that would probably be why okay, I think I see how this is working. There's the pin out. Let me grab another one of these boards so I can look at the way it's wired. Ground, okay. Okay, so it looks like when forward biased and enabled. Okay. So I think I know how this is wired, and that's why I couldn't test it without the battery installed. So I know this is going to be really hard to see, and it would be easier if I grabbed one of the boards for the one I actually built, because the other style uses a battery that there's a through-hole via for the negative terminal, because the battery holder is a different style. Okay, so if I'm reading this data sheet correctly, and there's a chance I've got this wrong, so here's the positive terminal on the motherboard. So that is going to the, and I need to look the pin out. Oh, that is actually connected to the output pin on this chip. So that's the output pin. Input is actually right there's the input. Wait a minute. Hold on. I think there might be a mistake on this board. I may have a defect for their an actual defect, because I sent this to production using their Gerber files. I think there's a mistake on this board. So this is the positive terminal on the battery. So I think that should be connected to this pin, which is the, no, hold on. Yeah, the VDD pin, which I think is voltage in. And it doesn't appear to be. Oh, wait. It is. Okay, I just can't see the trace. Never mind. That's the problem. Okay. Ground, and then also, it's also connected to enable. So when you insert the battery, yeah, no, this is backwards, somewhat. Okay, so when you insert the battery, this is the enable pin. So the battery's positive is connected to enable and VDD. Okay, I just can't see the trace. That was the problem. There's not a mistake on the board. Okay. Then the output of this device is connected to what goes to the positive terminal on the motherboard, because we're outputting the battery voltage to the motherboard. Negative, the negative from the motherboard should be connected to, and actually I think I can see the trace, it should be connected to ground on this device. It is. Okay. Yeah, it looks correct. So I think the reason why I had trouble testing it without the battery in is because when this charge controller is not enabled, it blocks voltage in both directions. But when it's enabled, it is, according to the data sheet, when enabled and forward biased, which is going to mean that you're not trying to drive voltage into it, because that would be reverse biased, then it will allow up to 1 amp to go forward, to go forth and power. So yeah, it looks like it's right. It's just made it hard to test because I didn't realize that the charge controller had an enable pin. So if VDD is greater than out, and enable is not to ground, it passes. I believe that's correct. I mean, that is kind of the weirdest. Well, there's one way to find out if it works, and that's to install it and power the motherboard up and see if the battery gets warm. Or I would say I could connect this battery up to a bench supply, but that seems dangerous. So yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. Trying to figure out what this board's doing is giving me a headache, but I'm pretty sure that it's going to, because let's see here, to charge the battery, I don't know, yeah, it's an op amp that drives a MOSFET. Yeah, that's exactly what it is, yeah. So I could use the 3.5 volt supply and see, yeah. Yes, Doc, that is a space heater behind me. How cold is it? Actually, that's an excellent question. And in fact, because I misplaced something on my workbench and removed a bunch of stuff, I uncovered my little thermometer. There's my current basement conditions. 52 point... Well, it's actually a little warmer on my workbench, but yeah. It's 53.1 degrees Fahrenheit in my basement. So, how much VDD? On this fully charged battery, it was pretty impressive. So, yeah, Doc, that's why I got a space heater. In fact, truth be told, there's a little one at my feet, too. I got one of those little it's like the little 300-watt ones at my feet. Yeah, 51 is kind of cold. 53 is cold. Actually, we don't have to try to calculate what that is in Celsius. Through the magic of, I just misplaced the thing I had on my workbench. Just as soon as I figure out where I set it. Oh, there it is. There's actually a little button on it I can press, I think. Well, I thought there was. Is that it? No. Well. Hold one moment, because I sure thought there was a button on these that you can press and it'll change units. But maybe there's not. Maybe these things are that cheap. Oh yeah, 10 Celsius. Thanks, Doc. Yeah, it's about 10 Celsius in my basement. So because of how fragile this board is, I'm just going to do the solder wick method of removing the old battery pins. And that's actually... And what you probably saw, one of them just fell right out. I think this other one had a bit more solder in the... You know, if I was really thinking of a good segue for trying to mention things that I'd use my coffee tips for, but hot cocoa is one of them. Just believe me, after I stream, I might need some hot cocoa. And I think I need to get some at the grocery store. So, all right. Also, I will put a label on this before anyone's saying you're going to erase your EEPROM. No, Adrian's Digital Basement did a test. There is not enough UV in my basement to erase this anytime soon. I mean, yes, I guess theoretically there might be enough UV to corrupt one bit, but it would take a long time to do that. So I'm fine for as long as it'll take me to actually go manage to find a label, because I'm gonna put a version number label on it. I'm not just gonna like put a label over it. I want to get a label that I can write. It's Mr. BIOS version 1.5. In fact, actually, what I may do after I install this battery, because one other thing, Jeremy, you might consider is on these boards, I don't know if you can do it on yours, but they actually used an oval hole instead of a round one to give you a little bit of wiggle room on the battery pins. It might be something to consider too, because it looks like I've got a... All right, so it looks like I'm dropping things. Oh, that was the pin header. All right, so this is going to be a little tricky. So I'm trying to hold this battery holder on somewhat straight with my fingers, which is not working well. So let me see if I can find my blue tack. And there we go. Oh, that works beautifully. Because I'm going to first solder these pins into the motherboard, and then I'll solder the other side. Because that's probably the wrong way to do it, but the pin spacing is slightly... It has to do with the pin spacing as to why I'm not soldering the pins on the battery holder first. Also, the CR2032 battery is not in the holder. That would be a bad idea. Also, all right, that's also going to be difficult but not impossible to solder, but I'm up to the challenge. Okay. Yeah, I should have probably tried to find some other way to get the pin spacing right than do it this way. So, next time I use one of these, I should have done this differently. All right. I don't think there's a way that I can show the... I want to solder the positive one off camera because I've knocked over my little thing of alcohol. So I need to move my soldering away from the spill zone. And I've melted some plastic somewhere, but I don't think it's on the motherboard. Oh, well, that's weird. All right. And I need to try to clean up my solder joint because it looks horrible. All right. For some reason, the solder did not flow right. All right. Okay. All right. I think I know where the plastic was that melted. I got a little bit of the battery holder melted. All right. Let me... Oh, I may have burned blue tack, too. Okay. Well, those pins are just got to stay long. Anyways, so I got the board in. not the... Well, it's soldered. I don't know, it feels awfully wiggly. Huh. Yeah, I melted some of the pin header. What did I... Okay. Oh, okay. I did just find what I melted. Luckily, I did not melt through the wire, but I lightly grazed one of the power supply wires with my soldering iron. All right, let me see if I can clean up the flux. And then I'll have to clean up my mess. Yeah, Francois, those charge controllers are not exactly cheap. But if you're going for a low voltage drop, that is about the lowest voltage drop that you'll find. The Schottky diodes that were my next option are, I couldn't find any that had a voltage drop of lower than 0.3 volts. Which means your 3-volt battery will be 2.7 volts. Which is usually still high enough for the CMOS settings to be retained and the clock to run, because usually those run down to about 2.5 or 2.4 volts. But oh, thanks, Trina. Awesome. All right, and there we go. Oh, battery is in. €1.71. That, wow. Yep, Mauser has them for 99 cents. Granted, I guess in the US there's nothing like VAT, so that would, if we had a value-added tax, that would increase the price of those, but yeah, they're definitely more expensive than if I had just gone for a just a Schottky diode, like one of your standard through-hole Schottky diodes, which have about a 0.3 voltage drop. I guess for reference, because I did order some of those. Those were 32 cents a piece. But they have a 0.3 voltage drop, so yeah, with the Schottky diode, you're going to run into the problem where your battery voltage will become marginal more quickly than although that would be somewhat mitigated by using the CR2032, which has more capacity than if you were using the CR1220 version. But yeah, still it's an expensive chip for sure. Anyways, there's no time like the present to give this a try. Now, I have seen what bad clock chips can do, because I was working with, well, I was at one of my coworkers' labs while someone else was working on a project that had a real-time clock chip in it. He bought some breakout boards from Amazon that were apparently fake or something clock chips, and some of them actually let the computer charge the coin cell battery. Okay, well, apparently the 240 millivolts. That's actually a little better than I was able to find. But then again, I was already had stuff to order from Mauser, so I was only considering one vendor. I'm sure if I'd expanded more vendors, I would have probably found probably would have found a lower voltage drop in stock. So, all right. So it is now 09:27 p.m. All right. 01/26/2023. Keyboard, go ahead and set my settings here. Type should be 47. Compact flash card I'm using is 1986 cylinders, 16 heads, 63 sectors. That's good. All right, go ahead and save and exit. See that I do actually launch Windows. I'm actually going to feel the clock chip and okay, well, I don't feel any signs of reverse charging, but all right, so now what did I just do? Well, I just disconnected the power supply leads, and well, we'll give this motherboard a couple minutes, and while we give it a couple minutes just to see if it holds the clock charge, I'm going to I guess put a temporary there we go. Gaff tape. Should be enough to protect the UV window. Although Adrian Black did a test where he, I think he put EEPROM chips in fluorescent lights in his basement for weeks on end, and I think they still held their data. In fact, I was kind of thinking even the ones he put out in the sun kept their data, but maybe he didn't put out any in the sun. So this will be nice if I can get this till it'll actually keep its BIOS. And I actually probably will... I probably will keep the Mr. BIOS in it, maybe. I don't know. Actually, while we wait for that, let's take a look at this Promise IDE card here. So this is the Promise IDE card I bought on eBay only because I noticed that it had a ROM version newer than the one on archive.org. It did not have an expansion bracket on it, but I'm not sure these had an expansion bracket when they were new. And in fact, from what I've read on some of these, even though there's an IDE port on them, they were really designed, at least according to some accounts, to disable the onboard IDE on this card and to use it with your better controller. So there's no time like the present to remove this this ROM chip from this board. And go ahead and read it for, whoops. Well, okay. I slightly bent one of the pins, but nothing bad. Let's see. 27,256. Ah, okay. That's interesting. Okay, so the version 4 ROM on archive.org was kind of weird. In that it actually was a 27C 512 chip, and it had 2 different ROM images on it that were selected by the card. But apparently, if I'm reading the marking on this board right, it looks like this is a 27,256. Unfortunately, that label is going to shred if I try to remove it. But, so let's, actually, there is a test we can do. Okay, so I'm going to take the card. And if you're thinking I'm doing this to let the battery potentially drain faster, you're right. Busted. Gig's up. All right, let's see here. I'm actually going to select the 27C512 chip. And I'm going to read it as that. Only because its predecessor actually used a 27C512. And, oh, sorry. I wish I could make that bigger. Can I make this bigger without causing huge painful problems? I guess so. There's at least better. So the reason I'm doing this is because I'm looking to see if maybe there are 2 ROM images in this. Because if this is actually a 27C512, then there actually will probably be a different image. This is Promise v1.03. Well, that's annoying. Because the version 4 ROM was allegedly actually has a different BIOS in the second half. And at 8,000 hex. Wait a minute. Is that the halfway point on this chip? Yeah, that is the halfway point. Look at that. Hold on. There are 2 different ROM images on this chip. Because there's 8,000 hex right there. Promise v1.17. v1.03. Wow. Hey, Steve. You've rubbed off on me, Steve. I bought a card on eBay because I noticed that the version of the ROM on archive.org was older than the one on the ROM that was on the eBay auction. And now I'm actually curious which ROM image this board actually uses. Because if I'm reading this right, if I'm reading the mark on the silk screen right, I bet it's only using half the ROM image. Coffee tips for silly shenanigans like this, always appreciated. Okay, JP3 setting. 1.2 IDE enabled. 2.3 IDE disable. Okay, I want to disable the IDE on this board because I don't want it to conflict with my controller card. And BIOS address, let's see here, JP4. Let's go load at D1000. That looks right. Okay. I'll also have to see if it actually is different or if it just has a different label on it, because no manufacturer would actually put a different label on the ROM chip and not change the code now, would they? The sickness is spread, yes. All right, well, let's see if by chance the CMOS clock was retained. Go ahead and turn this on. And off and on again, because I'm still thinking that there's a capacitor on that board that needs replaced, but maybe it's too dangerous. And now, will it complain about? It didn't complain. Promise technology, wow, 1.17. That BIOS could retain backwards compatibility. It could. There's one way to know for sure if this board is mapping half the BIOS or all the BIOS, and that's to run something like check it and do a system tools. Hold on. Nope. Did this version of Check It remove that feature? I bet it did. Printer, keyboard, mouse, joystick, video test tools. Oh, it did remove that feature. One of the previous version of Check It that I used before I realized that it wasn't compatible with some newer systems actually had a feature where you could actually have it spit out what it saw in the what expansion ROMs it saw. So anyways, I'll have Mr. BIOS tell me instead. So it actually it looks like it is mapping only half that ROM chip. Because if it was mapping that entire ROM chip, then it would show a ROM at D400 as well. Yeah. So, yep, it looks like that board is only mapping half the ROM. Although, now I do know why the... Well, I just dropped it on the floor. All right, let me save this ROM image I just dumped. So this is promise PTI 007. Let me see if this utility will let me compare it with the device tools. Trying to see if I can actually maybe compare the buffer with a file That would probably be too easy. All right, so instead, I'm just going to open up the one that was on archive.org. Oh, and sure enough, I just confirmed that it actually is an older version. So also, interestingly enough, even though archive.org said that there were 2 different ROMs, it doesn't appear as if it's actually 2 different ROMs. They're both reporting to be the same version. Which tells me that whoever dumped the ROM that's archived on archive.org might have done it wrong. Haha! Maybe they had the right information and they dumped the ROM wrong. Anyways, I had trouble using the ROM from archive.org. It actually did not, it wasn't detected by the system. So, good night, Trina. Thanks for joining. Anyways, so I am curious. Because one of the things about this BIOS on this card, now granted, I could have probably used the XTIDE BIOS to do the same thing, and it probably would have worked just as well, but this BIOS on these promise cards is supposedly adds logical block addressing, so. Anyways, that's cool. The card works. I'm glad. So, actually, what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to see if I can successfully put that ROM that I just dumped into this controller card that I just got on eBay. So load mode, normal, from hex 8000. Oh, first I need to select the right chip type. So I am going to attempt to program this into an AT28C256. Open the ROM file. Start from 8000 to, I guess that's going to be FFFF, I think. From file, oh. Hold on. There we go. I can't do math while I'm live streaming. Hey, Jay, welcome. Okay, so I have this 28C256, which I'm going to try using because it's electrically erasable. So if I do this wrong, I can... Sorry, hit the wrong button. So let me erase this chip because it doesn't work. And let me program. Hold on. Oh, yep, okay. Want to make sure I write protected after I program it. So this controller card I just got on eBay actually has a ROM socket for a 27C256. So now this chip should have the second half, the contents of the second half of the ROM from the promise card, which I believe is the part that the promise card was using. So I just put it in the socket, and if you give me one moment, I do want to change the base address of this controller card's ROM to match the C8, CC. All right, so W3, left, up, right, down. I'm changing the base address to match one of the addresses that the promise card can be set to, because I think that image might be not like being loaded somewhere else. And now, theoretically, if I power this up, I think I should now have the promise. No. That didn't work. Interesting. You know, I wonder if there's a logic chip on this controller card that might be bad, because... Or maybe a 28C... Okay. Let me try something else. Maybe a 28C256 pinout's not compatible. I thought it was. Maybe it's not. So, therefore, I'm going to grab a 27C256. Which should be freshly erased. And let's see, 27C256. This is a TI part. And let me open file, and file starting at 8000 hex. 8000. And let me do a blank check of the ROM. It is blank. Let me program it. Yeah, smash that like button. Subscribe. Comment. Do all the YouTube necessary bits. All right, so it programmed. Let me verify. And I'm going to... okay. And now that I have a 27C256, which I thought I'd inserted in a socket before, but the pins are flayed out. That's weird. The reason why I thought I'd inserted it in a socket before is because there was a chip on the end of the socket, and I sure remember using it for another experiment a couple days ago. Because I actually downloaded a couple different Mr. BIOS images, but the only one that actually worked was the one of the ones I found for this board. The UMC 410 one. That's the only one of the Mr. BIOS images that I downloaded that actually worked. And that's because I think the other ones were the wrong ones for the other boards that I thought I might get a better BIOS for. Sure enough, I think either there's a 74LS logic chip on this controller card that's dead that's required for the BIOS to work. Because I do have it enabled. There is a jumper, and I have the jumper enabled. Or the promise card actually requires you to have the whole ROM image. Even though it looks like it's only using half of it. Could the promise card be paging it? Well, now that could be... You know, there are 2 gals on the promise card. Maybe it is paging the BIOS. That would be really weird. Okay, so apparently this BIOS won't work the way I thought it would. Bummer. And that's weird, because the archive.org page seemed to indicate there's people that had burned this ROM image to a ROM file and used it with other controllers, but maybe I misread. Maybe what they'd actually done was they had a promise card and they just disabled the IDE on it. Maybe they had a promise card that was missing the BIOS. I don't know. Okay, well, anyways, that didn't work the way I thought it would, but I'll still archive the BIOS. Maybe there's a trick to getting it to work on in a different card. So anyways, all right, but at least I got a controller card that seems to work with Windows. I got a battery. My CMOS settings are being saved. I have no signs that the battery's getting charged. And the Mr. BIOS at least gets me past the DOS limit, or the BIOS limit of 1,024 cylinders, so. So therefore, obviously, I just made myself a liar, because I should. Oh, maybe I didn't enlarge the file system on this disk after all. That might be the other compact flash card. Okay, I left it at 500. Okay, never mind. I thought I'd made this a 1 gigabyte volume to fill the compact flash card, but apparently I didn't. Now there is one thing that which I can't, I can try. Hold on. If I can find the thumb drive for it. I was about to say that I took apart my Gotek and I didn't have another one down here, but I forgot I did. I just have to use the one that I pulled out of my TRS-80. Pending necessary repairs. Let me just see what I did with the ribbon cable. I'm going to try to do what I was trying to do the other day when I realized that there was some problem. I'm sure Ryan, Everything is Broken Garage, will be wanting to know the answer to this. In fact, maybe he might even be lurking out there wondering the important age-old question. Not as old as time itself, but seemingly pretty close to it in computing years. And that question would be, will Windows 95 install? And that would require me to actually select the boot disk before. Oh, actually, that would require me to configure the floppy drive. Well, Jeremy, you'll have to send me the voltage blaster board, and I will take a look at it. I don't know when I'll order boards next, because at the moment the Chinese board shops are still on vacation. Although I could check out the place you sent me again. Maybe for those boards it won't matter. But I ran into a problem when I was getting quotes from them for my last order, and that I actually had a board that that I couldn't just tell them to make it with their cheap service, because one of the boards I needed actually had to be a specific thickness. Which their cheap service, you have to basically let them pick all the parameters, including board thickness and plating and whatnot. But I'd ordered boards where I wanted to order boards from one place to save time, and I actually had to order some boards where it really did matter, the board thickness, and really probably the plating too, although not so much. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. We have not surpassed the point at which I was having trouble yet. If we get to 100% here and it continues, then it was probably the controller card all along, although the Mr. BIOS can't hurt. Now, well, actually, maybe I will let Windows 95 install. That would be the one way to know for sure that I'd fixed the problem. All right. Hey, look at that. I was not getting this far before. I definitely did not get this far before. Yeah, it was crashed. As soon as that first progress bar got to 100%, I was getting a fault in user.exe. So this controller card here, I think, was the problem the whole time. Now, I actually found an archive of the old Microsoft Knowledge Base articles, and I looked to see if there was anything in them about incompatible controller cards or whatnot, and I didn't find anything. But so I don't know if the problem is that this card is incompatible, or if maybe there's actually just something wrong with it. Unfortunately, if there's something wrong with it in terms of the IDE, well, it could be one of these 74 series logic chips, because I think the IDE on these cards pretty much connects directly to the ISA bus. This Windbond chip that I'm trying to peel the label off of is going to be the multi-IO controller. Okay, now hold on. Now this is a super secret CD key, and I'm hoping I remembered the number of ones after the dash. All right, I don't have any of those fancy items, so detect hardware away. Yeah. Yeah, don't tell anyone that super, super, super secret CD key that's all over the internet. All over the internet, as well as anyone that has an MSDN subscription that would know that for a lot of the older Microsoft products, there's just a single key for all of them. All right, we'll just install the most common components. I'm gonna let this install. I want to see Windows 95 run on this machine. It meets the requirements. It is a 386DX. Processor speed-wise, it's going to be on the fastest side at 40 megahertz. Now, RAM-wise, I only have 4 megabytes of RAM in this thing, but that is the minimum amount of RAM. Yes, this lowly computer here with an 8-bit video card, a controller card, 4 megs of RAM, and a 386DX, even if it is an AMD, it's a 386DX, meets the minimum system requirements for Windows 95. In fact, I think the 386DX16 would too, but I don't have one of those. So the 40 megahertz will have to do. Now, granted though, I actually don't meet the minimum system requirements because the minimum system requirements do say I need a sound card, but that doesn't prevent you from installing or running Windows. I think that was more because Microsoft wanted you to be able to hear the startup chime or something like that. I don't know. Also, this will probably install pretty quick because I put the installer on the compact flash card. So it'll be installing at bus speed. Which actually, from a compact flash card, is pretty nice. It's probably it's 5 megabytes a second or less. It might even be 5 megabits. Whatever the maximum is on the ISA bus you can get, I'm probably saturating it. But this is awesome. My 386 has never worked better. And the only way to make it work even better would be to recap it, but I will defer to the wisdom of the chat, and I will do that only if it starts misbehaving really badly. So luckily, the caps I had to order for this are fairly common values, and I mean, I may still consider swapping out the main filter caps, but probably not. I guess it's working good enough. I guess in reality, it's not like I'm gonna leave this thing on. I don't have a case to put this in. I'm hopefully someday going to, which actually, I guess, Retrotech Chris, if you're still there, I almost have a date in mind that maybe I will come up to Northern Virginia and we can go e-waste shopping, because I know one thing I'd love to find at the e-waste would be a case for this 386 board. Although, I do have to say, I did buy a case on eBay the other day, as much as I didn't want to, but this was one of those, I probably overpaid for it, but I really liked the case, and, well, I made an offer. It was an offer I didn't think they'd accept. I'll get with you, Jeremy. I have a specific case in mind though for it. It's pretty specific. In fact, it's so specific, I'd kind of like an actual AT case that's a desktop style, full height cards, but it needs to actually have enough slots that I can use them all. I pretty much know really what I want. But anyways, so I'd found this case on eBay. I probably overpaid for it. But one thing that is for sure, I did not pay what they wanted for it. Also, if anyone's wondering why I bought it, the blue highlights were cool. Let's face it, it was the blue highlights. And I guess it's in decent shape. Now, I'm not going to admit how much I actually paid for it because, well, you all will probably eventually get me to admit what the number was. I honestly thought the seller was just going to reject it right offhand because I thought it was low enough that they were going to find it insulting and just reject it, but they accepted it. No, it doesn't have the segmented LED. That was one thing it didn't have. And that's probably why I'm going to use that case for the Pentium 2. Because the segmented displays wouldn't be able to show 500 anyways, or 450 anyways. So that case is probably for the Pentium 2. Maybe the 486, but probably the Pentium 2. Just because Pentium 2 is kind of the end of when I remember building beige. Well, maybe not quite the end. I guess Pentium 2 was near the end of the beige era, before computer manufacturers started making cases in black because, well, I guess they decided beige was old, and it probably was. So that one will probably be for the Pentium 2 because it's an actual ATX motherboard. So, and I guess given the way the processor sits, it probably really needs to go in an older case where I can actually properly point fans at the heatsink. But anyways, yeah, it'll probably be for the Pentium 2. The other thing that case didn't have was the recessed spot for a case badge, but, well, I'm just going to stick a case badge on it anyways. Yeah, I think that AMD Duron 750, yeah, that really was the end of the beige era. But the Pentium 2 is going to be probably where I stick it in that beige case. Well, it has blue on it too. And I don't know, maybe I might get inspired and paint it sunflower yellow and with the blue highlights. But then again, I think Dave has the sunflower computer block on the market. Hey, Bruce, welcome. I'm just glad that Windows is installing. Oh, no, Jeremy, this is a PC Chips M326 motherboard. Don't add numbers to the model number. PC Chips motherboards don't deserve adding numbers to the model number. This one's only the M326. With the SARC chipset, which I think actually became a UMC chipset. Because this Mr. BIOS I found for the UMC 410 chipset is running great. I'm going to leave it in this board. I will hold on to the original BIOS chip. just in case I find out that this isn't so compatible. Oh, that was your first brand new mother. Okay, that was your motherboard. Okay, glad we got that straightened out, Jeremy. Because you probably are agreeing with me that PC chips motherboards don't deserve to have numbers added to their model number, because PC chips probably did that to make an older board sound better. Blah. So everything is broken, Garage. If you're lurking out there, hey, Windows 95 is now installing on the 386. Now, the one thing with this Mr. BIOS that I did notice, and further research may be needed, which is why I'm going to keep the old BIOS, is the RAM that Ron sent me does not work in this motherboard with the Mr. BIOS. Mr. BIOS throws a memory error. Well, actually, it's a beep code. I had to go look it up. It thinks the memory's bad in the first 64K with the memory Ron sent me. Yet that memory tests fine with the original BIOS in this board. Well, at least until Check It crashed during the video memory test that I disabled then. So, which is weird. I don't know. I disabled the video memory test, and yet when I see Check It crash on this board running a memory test, it always crashes at the video memory test that I disabled. So whatever, I don't know. But the 32 megabytes of RAM that Ron sent me tests fine with the original BIOS in this motherboard, at least until Check It crashes under dubious means of claiming it's running a test that I disabled. So maybe the crash that I'm seeing isn't a stability crash. Maybe it's a bug in Check It. Maybe Check It is going off the rails and is crashing, because that is the thing. Every time I've seen it crash, it's telling me it's running a test I disabled. So maybe this motherboard isn't too unstable, although maybe it is. Good night, Eric. So, but yeah, that's if I want to put some more. I do want to put a little more RAM in this board, because 4 megabytes is like the bare minimum for Windows 95. I think I'd at least like to put, and I know Jeremy's going to be like, you don't need that much RAM, but I'd like to put 16 megabytes of RAM in this board. That's my trade-off between going to the moon, which I don't think I need in the 386. Oh, you know, it would help if I clicked the finish button with the correct mouse. Yeah, my trade-off between, going to the moon and, like, actually being able to afford RAM. Although I've been meaning to actually look at the RAM Ron sent me to look up the model number on the chips to see if by chance it's like EDO RAM or something like that. Because I thought EDO RAM should run in fast page mode. But, you know, maybe the problem is maybe this 386 motherboard doesn't do fast page. I know, getting ready to run Windows 95 for the first time again. Yeah, exactly, Thomas. You know I've run Windows 95 before. I remember it was on our Hewlett-Packard Pentium. I think it was a Pentium 75. And so I guess anyways, it was the first family computer we bought. It was the summer right before I started high school. Mom and Dad realized that, yeah, we got to get a computer so I can do homework. So we went to, story goes, we went to Sears, bought a Packard Bell Pentium 90 with the extended warranty. And I guess it's probably 3 months after we bought it, Dad accidentally broke the CD-ROM drive. And the Sears warranty supposedly covered accidental damage. Dad definitely did accidentally damage the drive. So we called the extended warranty company. They said they'd send someone out to replace it because it included on-site service. Technician didn't show up. We called them back. They say, okay, well, we'll send someone else out. That technician didn't show up. And I guess Dad probably called them back and realized that they just really weren't going to send someone out like they said they would. So we packed the computer up. We went back to Sears. Dad said, I'd like to speak to a manager. Manager comes out. Dad says, I would like to return this computer because of that guarantee you have on the wall. It says satisfaction guaranteed. Your extended warranty company is not doing what they said they would do. And Sears actually accepted the return under their satisfaction guarantee. Even though we were outside the official return period, they actually honored their satisfaction guarantee. So we returned the Pentium 90 Packard Bell with a broken CD-ROM drive that the extended warranty company was not going to replace, even though it covered damage. And we went to Circuit City and we bought a Hewlett-Packard Pentium 75. Didn't have any trouble with that computer, but at the time we bought it, both computers, I think, actually had a rebate on them that you mail it in and you'll get Windows 95 when it ships. So I do remember installing Windows 95 for the first time on our Hewlett-Packard Pentium 75 when we got our free Windows 95 upgrade because we bought the computer that summer before they released it. So this is like bringing back old memories. Oh, welcome, Gamer Plays 567. This computer is actually a 386DX 40 megahertz. And the reason why it probably seems like it's more responsive than a 40 megahertz 386 should be is because the OS is on a compact flash card, which is actually really helping. I mean, actually, this runs really nicely. Windows installed all the drivers. Cool. Hey, it had built-in Trident Super VGA drivers. That's really cool. Oh, Jeremy, I wish I had pictures of those computers. Next time I'm at my parents' house, I'm going to have to go through the albums, but I'm not sure that we took any pictures of those computers. However, I do have a picture of my first computer, although I haven't posted it to social media because the camera I took the picture with was one of those focus-free cameras, and the pictures are out of focus, which kind of bummed me out when I got the film back from developing. And that probably just told everyone definitely for sure now when I built my own computer. It was in like the late 90s. Which I'm sure my parents were totally okay with because my brother started high school and he now also needed to use the computer for homework. So, hey mom, hey dad, I want to use my summer job money to build a computer. They were probably like, excellent. Now we don't have to buy a second one so that you can both do homework. I guess I will post it to social media sometime, Jeremy, as soon as I can go scan it. And maybe, you know, Adobe Express has some pretty neat tools on it. Maybe it's got a tool that might improve the focus a little. But yeah, I don't have pictures of those the Packard Bell or the Hewlett Packard. Maybe there's one in the family album that happens to have the computer in it, and I just forgot it was taken. But it might be that the computer's in the background. Although it would probably be the Hewlett-Packard because we didn't have the Packard Bell that long. So, but this is really cool. I got Windows 95 installed. Don't know that I can do much with it. Oh, I could run the DOS programs. I could run Solitaire and Minesweeper. And maybe, just maybe, I can see if there were any extra programs in the install media that I can go install. Nah, I just copied over the installer for Windows 95. Bummer. Good night, Frank. Oh, you know what I could do? I could do install. I think I got WinCheck at 4, which I think is the Windows 95 version. So let's see. So I guess while I see what shenanigans I could do before I decide if I'm going to pull anything else out tonight, if you have memories of your first computer, put them in the chat. So Jeremy says he misses his first computer, an IBM Aptiva with a Pentium 100, 4X Mitsumi CD-ROM drive, a 1.2 gigabyte IBM hard drive, and an M-Wave modem sound card combo. Isn't M-Wave the card that one of the famous YouTubers had trouble getting it to work? Wait a minute, wasn't it RetroTech Chris that had trouble getting it to work? Or am I getting it confused with another IBM sound card? Thomas Armstrong says TRS-80 Model 1 4K. Well, I guess technically our first family computer was an Apple II Plus. It was a hand-me-down from one of my teachers. Obviously, I wasn't going to be doing high school homework on it. Not in the mid to late 90s. All right, well, let me... All right, let's see here. And check it for... Well, I presume that's correct. Requires a 6-character ID to uniquely identify your machine. 6-character. All right. AM. Let's see here. 386D40. There. Description. Awful. PC chips. M326 with AM386 DX40. How's that for a description? And it actually didn't complain about that. All right. 1-Bit Fever Dreams. His first family computer was a Mac Plus, and he still has it. It still works. And it's not the Mac Plus with the that he's put the RGB to HDMI in, and I don't blame you there. Don't blame you there at all. Oh, let's see. The first computer Jeremy had in their family home was a dumb terminal that his dad bought from the University of Texas at auction for $10 in '91, which is $21.79 in today's money. Bites tongue to not make comment about how many eggs you could buy with that money. Also, I have to say, I sure do miss having the sheet station at the corner I have to drive by to go to work every day, because I was a little bit surprised when I had to go get gas last time, because at the moment, there are no gas stations I drive by to get to work now, because they closed our sheets to remodel it. And by remodel it, that would be like remodel in air quotes, because they knocked the building down, tore up the entire parking lot. Although I will have to say, though, they have already put a new building, well, the outside shell of the new building, back up. It's got the Tyvek wrap on it. I don't know what they've got in terms of the roof system they have on it. I've already seen them, I think, move a couple of the old gas tanks. They have buried 2 new gas tanks, so I know exactly why they tore up the entire parking lot. It's because they actually added gas tanks, which probably means they're going to offer more gas blends now. They will have fewer gas pumps than they had before, but supposedly, if the plan is as they say, they're actually going to put electric charging stations in at the new place too. So I don't think we're getting a car wash though, because their property wasn't that big. But yeah, they claim they're Sheets doesn't mess around. No, they don't, Chris. They say they're going to be open in May, and let's just say that when they closed, and I kept watching their empty site for like 3 weeks with seemingly nothing happening, other than I noticed that Rappahannock Electric cut power to their site like a couple days in. I think they were tearing out some of the stuff in the building before they knocked the building down. But that 3 weeks, I kept thinking, if they're lollygagging like this, they're never going to get it open by May like they said they would. But man, they knocked the building down. They had all that scrap off-site in 3 days, because they knocked the building. It took 2 days, or I think a day and a half to knock the building down. 3 days to get all the waste off-site, maybe 4. In the meantime, they were already starting to take the jackhammers to the concrete parking lot so that they could dig things up. And, I mean, they had the shell of the structure up in like a day or 2, which doesn't surprise me, because even houses, they do off-site fab and then put it up in like a day. But I know, time is money for those guys, and I guess that is the good thing. Sheets knows that every day that store is closed, how much money they are not making, because that place was busy and probably will be busy. Because, I mean, there's a lot of people that have to drive right by it. And Wawa's got better food, but there are a few things I do like at Sheets. And I guess if their coffee's fresh, their coffee's not bad. And they got a few things that they're made to order that I do like. And I guess they are putting in a drive-through, which I guess is hopefully will mean that when you place an order for pickup, that it'll be more reliable than them having to wait till they have someone they can send outside for curbside pickup. But yeah, it was kind of one of those. I was getting worried they wouldn't be open by May, but then when they really started working on site, man, they're really cranking. But the only thing is, they took their sign down too. And I mean, even if they didn't, it's not like they're going to update the pricing while they're not open. So yeah, so last time I filled up with gas, I was like, hadn't seen the price until I actually got there. Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. There are some weird things that Sheets has, but there also are some good things that if you get the right thing, yeah, it's pretty good. I actually kind of like their, they have like a black bean and rice side that's not bad. They've got some like one of their chicken, it's like a chicken flatbread that's not bad. And yeah, some of their sandwiches, if you configure them right, they're pretty good. But yeah, Sheets also, sometimes when I get their email and it says what their new shake flavor is, I'm like, really? Ew, who's going to drink that? But I'm like, I mean, no joke. I think one of their shakes that I remember them selling was like a gummy worm shake. And it might have even been the sour gummy worms in a milkshake. I'm sure. Okay, if that's your thing, that's not my thing. Yeah, Jeremy, I do believe that if they're adding tanks, one of them probably will be non-ethanol gas. Yeah, the Fruity Pebbles shakes. Yeah, yeah, seriously. Yeah, the Wisconsin cheese bits are also pretty good too. Yeah. Jeremy, it's the gummy worms, but still, yeah, I'm with your sentiment's correct. Of like, no thanks. But yeah, that's the yeah, there are definitely things that on the Sheets' menu that aren't bad. And that Wawa doesn't have. Yeah, those Wisconsin cheese bites. I don't think Wawa has those. Well, let's see. What was I going to do? I guess run WinCheck and I don't know. I guess I installed it. We see the info. I guess it's there for posterity. Oh, I don't have a CD-ROM drive installed. I can't run the. Huh. All right. Oh. I've not run the multimedia benchmark with this. Sure, I'll run the multimedia benchmark. But I don't have a CD-ROM drive. All right. If anyone's wondering how good the 386 would be at the multimedia benchmark, I guess that's what I really wanted to do. With an 8-bit video card. Okay, and I don't know how badly YouTube is mangling the multimedia video, but it looks like a slideshow on my end too. So yeah, if you're seeing how it seems to be not that fluid in its animation, yeah, it's doing the same thing on my end. Oh yeah, it has a shopper button. Okay, well maybe we'll have to see what that is. Although it'll probably be my luck that it probably is just it'll try to take us to the PC shopper website that no longer exists. And even if it does still exist, I don't have a network card on this computer yet. All right. I'm sure this will be a benchmark that will easily be beat. Testing video. I don't know that I call that video more than like a slideshow. Don't I have a 16-bit SVGA? Yes, I do, but it's in another computer. And oh, actually, I've got more than one. So the one that's actually a competent 16-bit SVGA card is in another computer. I don't really feel like pulling it out right now. The other one that's a competent card is actually defective. Although I guess we could see if it might cooperate in a different computer. And then the third one I have, it's only a 16-bit, 16-color card. Oh, and it exited without showing us the benchmark. Win check it for... All right, we're going to run win check it again so we can see the benchmark score. Yeah, I still need some nicks. I only have one 16-bit ISA NIC, and it's in another computer right now. And I really don't want to pull it out of that computer because it's the only way I can use a drive in that computer. Okay. Woohoo! All right, I think these are the benchmarks that just ran. Wow, we scored a 36. Which is quite awful compared to a 486 DX4100. Oh, I guess, you know, if I had thought I would have run it under Windows 3.1 before upgrading. Oh, well. Yeah, look at those. That wonderful benchmark. Woohoo! Yeah. Can only go up from there. It needs more RAM. Yeah, it probably does. Although, according to this... Oh. Yeah, the largest memory available is 96K. Yeah, it does need more RAM. Well, let's see what I might be able to do about the RAM situation. All right, well, let me shut down the computer because the other thing I'm going to do will need me to shut down the computer. All right, so let me see what I got here. All right, with Mr. BIOS, I can't use the 4 megabyte sims. But I can steal another 4 megabytes out of the 486 since I'm not using it right now. Actually, you know, I could do something else. I will... Actually... Let's try this. Okay, I actually did something even better. So I didn't steal 4 megabytes from the 486. I stole 16 megabytes from the 486 because I realized while Mr. BIOS did not like the 16 megabytes or the RAM that Ron sent me, I had 16 megabytes in the caching controller card that I bought off eBay, and I think Mr. BIOS didn't have a problem with it. Although we'll know in a moment. Well, it didn't start beeping, so I think we're good. So actually, I can try this with 16 megabytes. I just need to remember to put that back in the... Well, actually... I mean, the cache and controller card probably only really needs 4 megabytes anyways. All right, it looks like that's good. So let's make sure that... Oh. Make sure Windows starts with that RAM. We'll run a benchmark. Yeah, this is a loaded 386. I could put another... Well, Jeremy, that is quite honestly a crazy idea. Make a board to convert this to 72-pin sims. But for the same reason why I did not recap this board, and that's how fragile this board could be, I really don't want to take the sim slots out of this board, because that would incur certain doom for this board of desoldering 30 pins times 8. Yeah, it's actually quite snappy. And in fact, I bet the extra RAM probably helped, because now at least the largest memory... Oh, I think that's the... That doesn't make any sense. 112K largest memory available? That just doesn't make any sense at all. Maybe that's below 1 megabyte? I don't know. And maybe that number is not accurate while the benchmarks run. But yeah, let's see how this helped performance. Yeah, if I'm going to desolder 240 pins off this board, Jeremy, I might as well then just desolder another 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. I think it's like 30. I think there's like 15 caps on this board that are electrolytic. I might as well just desolder another 30 if I'm going to desolder 240. The 72-pin sims might actually like to have more reliable electrolytic caps. I think I'll just put up with overpriced 30-pin sims on eBay. I'll probably put just 4 megabytes back in the cache and controller card. Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers under the half circles, but the thing is, on this half circle, this doesn't make any sense. If I've got 16 megabytes of memory, how do I only have 824K largest memory block available? Well, oh, yes, it's largest memory block available. Oh, it also helps to click the correct mouse. The benchmark. All right, let's run the benchmark again with more RAM, and then I'll try this video card that I think is actually bad. Oh, sorry, Jeremy. I think my logo is covering up. That says largest memory block available, not, yeah. That's not memory. That's not memory used. That's like largest block free. Although, granted, that's largest block free, which means memory must be fragmented. It is faster already. I can tell it. Yeah, this has some serious memory fragmentation. For sure. If that's the largest... In fact, actually, well, I think it went to 0 when it ran this test. Woohoo! The video test! Still, that looks faster, but that is not what I call full motion video. It's a snappy little thing. Well, I guess that's all this PC chip's motherboard has for it. It's a cheap 4-layer board. I'm presuming it actually is 4-layer board, which is probably fewer layers than other motherboards would have had. It's got the awfulest caps on it. I mean, it's using a clock generator instead of an oscillator. I mean, at least it has cache on it, although I had to add it only had the tag RAM that came with it. In fact, I don't know why it had a tag RAM chip soldered to it and no RAM. Oh, look at that. I gained 2 points on the benchmark. It is faster. All right. What's this shopper do? Jeremy noticed the shopper button. Let's see what it does. Oh, it's a bunch of programs that you could buy. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Let's see. So if I wanted to run Adobe Premiere for Windows on this computer, I meet the requirements according to this. The video is slowing down the aggregate. Yeah. Windows installed Trident drivers for me. It looks like they're just the SVGA drivers. Also, I'm using an 8-bit Trident card, which is probably slowing it down. All right, let's see if I can. Let's see if I can push my luck here. I don't think this card's going to work. All right, let's see if this card will actually work. Yeah, I'd have to pull a 16-bit Trident card out of another computer. Hey, at least I'm not trying to use that oak tree card. Eight bits are all you need. Unless you're using a 32-bit computer with a 16-bit bus. Which feels so... That Trident 8-bit card versus your Paradise PVGA1A. Yeah, at least I didn't put the oak tree card in here. All right, well, let's see what Windows 95 does with this card. I couldn't get Windows 3.1 to work with this card. And I kind of concluded there was something wrong with the card, but let's see what Windows does if we can get drivers installed for it. I think I'm going to have to scan for new hardware. Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to... I'm removing a device. And I'll restart. Yep, the Trident 8-bit card works well for testing, but I've got a 16-bit card in here now, which I don't know if it's going to work. If it does work, I'll see if I can find Windows 95 drivers if they're not already included. It is an S3-based card, so... And it's a 16-bit card. All right, let's see. Look for new hardware. Now, if Windows locks up... Oh, yeah, I should have done that, Jeremy. Now, if Windows locks up, I will not be surprised, and that will probably confirm that this card is... There's something wrong with it. Or when I install drivers, if it doesn't work. So this card I've installed now is the S3... well, it's actually the Paradise... No, it's not Paradise. It's Orchid Technology Fahrenheit 1280 Plus. It's a S3 801 based graphics card. It has, I think it has 1 megabyte of RAM on it. I couldn't get it to work in the 386. Windows, this was what was causing Windows on the 386 to crash with standard drivers. And that would be the Emerson 386. It will like Mr. BIOS. Maybe it will like Mr. BIOS. Oh, actually, my Emerson 386 was one of the computers that I tried to find Mr. BIOS images for. And I came close. In fact, actually, maybe we'll... maybe that might be the last thing I do. I have a theory. So basically, the problem I ran into with the Emerson 386 is, under the Mr. BIOS list of 386 BIOSes, I didn't see anything that matched the chipset in the Emerson 386. I tried what looked like it might be correct, and the computer crashed almost immediately. So I saw the Mr. BIOS, the box that said Mr. BIOS, it counted up to 512K RAM. It showed 32K of cache, which does not exist on the Emerson 386, and it crashed hard. So that BIOS was definitely not compatible. But the chipset that's in the Emerson 386 appears to be a 286 chipset. And there are multiple Mr. BIOS images for that chipset. So I was actually tempted to write some BIOS, write those to some chips and put them in the Emerson and see what it did. But I'm kind of afraid it might only support 4 megs of RAM with that BIOS, because apparently that chipset in a 286 system only supported 4 megs of RAM. Or at least that's what the datasheet says. I don't know. It's weird. Oh, all right. It is ready to install support. All right. Huh. Maybe Windows had built-in drivers for this S3 graphics card. I mean, it probably was out long enough that maybe it did. Anyways, I think I did copy the Mr. BIOS images, it looks like it's installing the... Looks like it just installed the standard SVGA drivers. Yeah, I've got the images on my NAS, so I mean we can see what the Emerson 386 might do. Hi, Joe. Joe is making a video. Joe is also sold out of Blue SCSI V2s. So go to scuzzy.blue and check the other sellers. They might be sold out too. Joe will have more stock as soon as his board shop resumes production after the Lunar New Year celebrations end. And then they get shipped to the US. Oh, cool. It does look like that it installed drivers. Maybe this card... Well, this graphics card seems to be working just fine in this board. Even though it hated the Emerson 386. It's not crashing Windows yet. Yes, I'm trying to jinx it. Oh, bad news. All the Blue SCSI sellers are all sold out of Blue SCSI V2s, so... Did Windows 95 ever detect a known monitor? No, I don't think it did. Oh, look at that. I don't know if you can see it, but there is a line on the screen shadowing the mouse. So I bet there is something wrong with this graphics card. Ooh, look at that. Graphical anomalies. That... It might be bad VRAM, Jeremy. Because that's crashed. Well, Windows 95, the epitome of reliability. Try another refresh rate. Setting. I would, but I think Windows 95 has crashed. Okay, let me see what Joe was saying. Turn down acceleration. Okay. And Chris says try another refresh rate. Okay. So what am I doing wrong? No, that doesn't seem right. There's no refresh rates there. And I don't remember where acceleration is. What does it use for VRAM? The video. Dial the color back, yeah. I mean, really, this card was causing the Emerson 386 to crash. So there very well may be bad VRAM on it. There are no electrolytic caps on this video card, so it's probably not. I mean, I guess it could be a tantalum cap, but oh, I think I just. Oh, oh no! Windows has encountered an error in the registry. Oh, and I just noticed something, which I couldn't see because of my overlay. Does anything look suspiciously wrong about the left side of the screen? Like how I think there's like pixels missing? The VRAM is DIP. And the first bank is soldered to the card. The first bank is also probably the bank where there's a bad memory chip. So I can't just swap RAM. Yeah, oh no. I think I'm just gonna have to power it down unsafely because unfortunately the only option there is restart. Yeah, Joe could be right. Okay, I guess Windows did do exactly what I told it to do. I think I meant to hit F8, not F5. Although, maybe that was the good choice, because now I'm in safe mode, which means colors are reduced, and that might mean I can actually do this fast enough. Okay, so this video card is still bad. I think we just proved that the reason the Emerson 386 didn't like the card is because there's something wrong with the card. Probably specifically the VRAM, but potentially it could be the video chip itself. But it's probably the VRAM. I guess if anyone's wondering, because I think when I looked at the Emerson 386 last, I didn't have an overhead camera to do this. So it's Fujitsu RAM, which theoretically is better than MT RAM, but maybe not necessarily the best version. But yeah, there's bank 1, and it's all soldered, and that's probably where the bad RAM chip is. Even though I know that one chip in bank 2 looks gnarly, given the fact that the left pixels are missing on the screen, that's probably bank 1's doing. I mean, it's a shame, though. It's a pretty high-quality card. There's no electrolytics on it. That's Fairchild? I don't think that's Fairchild, Jeremy. I think that is Fujitsu. I think Fairchild's logo was... because that's the F with the line above and below it. I think that's Fujitsu. Because Fairchild... Bear with me one moment. Fairchild... Cue the 74 LS series chip assortment I bought from Jamco. There's Fairchild. It's the Italic F. So yeah, I think the RAM is Fujitsu. Although it doesn't really matter because it's bad. I'll probably have to get some... Ooh, you have an Orchid VLB card. And a Mach 64 VLB card too. Ooh, that's nice. I just need a better 16-bit card, or probably need to order some... figure out what topology 881C4 256A is and replace it. Oh, that's mean. They bent pins, so that's not going to be an easy desolder. Are those just going to be like 256 by 4 DRAMs? .256 by 4 DRAMs, but they're 60 nanosecond. Wait, did I buy some... I might have RAM chips that might fit that, but I don't know. Although, honestly, what I could do if I really wanted to, and maybe I will if I've got the sockets to do it, I should probably just remove the first 4 and put the second 4 in their place. That would only mean that this card would have 512K of RAM, which isn't enough for... Oh, I can't run with 512K RAM without cutting a trace and installing a jumper. That's a shame. 512K RAM isn't enough for 256 colors at 640 by 480. No, Joe, I think I've already tried yanking the second 4 chips on the Emerson 386, and it was still crashy as all get out on the Emerson 386, so I think the problem's in the first 4 RAM chips. I'm going to see if I've screwed up my Windows 95 install by poking the bear. Hopefully that other video card was just that bad and horrible and bus crashy and was just making the bus unreliable, and that's why I was getting registry errors. But while this runs its detection, I'm going to see if I can find the RAM chips that I bought the other day and see what type they are, and see if I've got sockets to match. I just have to remember where my last UT source order went, because I bought some RAM chips on a whim, and hey, that's not them. That's not them. Oh, is this them? No, those are, I think, standard logic chips. Wait, is this the order? Those are gals. These are... MCM 514 250. Okay. Okay, I've got RAM chips that I think are compatible. They're only 70 nanoseconds. So they may not actually be compatible. But maybe Maybe at a lower resolution they might be fast enough. But I think the important thing is, let's see if I corrupted the Windows install. Oh man. That's not good. I think my Windows install is corrupted. All right, well. All right. I have tested all of this memory. I'm pretty sure this memory that I've got in this computer, I put in a computer and it tested fine. At least until the version of Check It for DOS crashed, saying it was testing the video memory, even though I had disabled the video memory test, which led me to believe that Check It crashed because it ran a test that I did not have enabled. Well, we'll run a RAM test again. Well, I mean, we'll run a RAM test. Maybe this RAM doesn't like this Mr. BIOS. Anyways, I have been deselecting the video RAM test. Single test. Comprehensive. But when Check It crashes, wait a minute. That's weird. Did I accidentally hit a key on the keyboard? RetroTech Chris, I do not have a version of MemTest handy that will run on in DOS. So I don't think this installed the DOS version. I don't know who app it is and why it canceled the memory test, but also every version of MemTest that I've seen is a USB drive, and this computer doesn't have USB. I don't think I'm going to be able to run a suitable memory test tonight. Oh, if you could send me a link on a floppy, I can. I have a GoTech. I'll just put the image. I'll put the image on a floppy disk. If you're going to send me a link, a Twitter DM would probably be best because I'm actually logged into Twitter on this computer. Facebook would require me to actually log in to, or Messenger would require me to log into Facebook on this computer. Which would require me to find my phone. Joe is, while we wait for a memory test, Joe is going to be diagnosing and fixing a revision 0 Apple II on a stream in the next couple of weeks. It is going to be epic. We will hold you to that, Joe. It probably will be epic. All right, while I wait for the memory test link and have... Oh, let me see if I can find sockets for these memory chips. I need 20-pin sockets. And something tells me I don't have any sockets that are the right type. Let's see, those are 16s. Those are... Oh, yeah, 28s, but way too wide. That's not going to work. There's the 40-pin turned pin style sockets that I bought that were probably not the type I wanted for what I was doing them for. Well, there's my seemingly enough parts to build an 8-bit computer. Oh, Greg Rutcase decided to start streaming. Oh, that's nice. Well, all right. Well, I guess it's good to know that Greg still occasionally streams. Oh, okay. It does appear as if I do not have 20-pin sockets. Well, I've got 16. I've got 18. Oh. I gave up too soon. I do have 20-pin sockets. You know, this is kind of one of those times where I wish I had a Retro Chip Tester Pro, but I don't. All right, Chris has sent me a link. Excellent. As soon as I can download it here. All right. All right. All right, we will run a memory test. Oh, ECC is off. Oh, ECC is off, of course. Parity should be on, though. All right, well, while this memory test runs, and is nearly consuming my entire bench, I'm going to actually take a look at desoldering these memory chips. Because, I mean, it's like 11:22 p.m., so why not start something new? Also, apparently I hid the chat from myself. Of course, the thing is, I don't know how successful I'm going to be at desoldering these memory chips, because my desoldering station has been really uncooperative as of late. Which is telling me that I'm probably going to have to take the actual desoldering gun apart and install this, which is a new heating element. And I don't really want to do that, but it seems like no matter how much I clean it as of late, it does not want to do its primary function. Well, I guess I could check the filter on the vacuum end. Yeah, the nozzle is clean. There are no obstructions there. There's nothing in the handpiece itself, because I haven't been able to desolder anything with it after I last cleaned it. And the filter on the pump side is clean. Currently testing memory in a virtual machine. Well, I guess that virtual memory could be bad. Okay. I don't have enough space on my workbench to leave this computer running and desolder on screen, so I'm not sure this is actually going to do anything, because I think I need to replace the heating element. I don't really have a way of checking that it's at temperature. Other than to... Yeah, well, actually, let me see if it'll even just melt solder. That would be... Well... Well, it did melt solder when I put solder to the tip. But... Let me see if adding some solder will help that come out. Well, flexing it will... Oh, Jeremy, this card doesn't have enough room for those adapters. The memory chips are too close together. Oh, it also helps that I'm gonna try adding a little bit of solder to see if it's just old solder. Although maybe that pin was on a ground plane. Maybe that's why it wouldn't come out. I mean, maybe I do need to add some flux, but... And this, I guess, is at least the type of station where flux wouldn't be a completely horrible bad idea, but... I wish I had one of those temperature testers for soldering irons. Yeah, I'll try adding a little flux to a pin or two. I've been having trouble with this desolder station. The last couple times I've tried using it, I've ended up having to use like solder braid. All right, well, let's see what flux will do. Maybe adding solder didn't do it. Yeah, that didn't do it either. Nope. Okay. Either my tip on that desolder station is not getting hot enough. There's an obstruction somewhere in an odd place that I have yet to find. Or the vacuum pump's failing, because... I don't know, it kind of sounded like it was clogged, even though it's not. I think I'm about to use the hot air trick to remove these RAMs. Oh, congratulations for finding your lost power book. Ah, exploring Tiny Core Linux on your Pentium. That sounds cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to... I don't know why these chips aren't desoldering. The solder braid isn't really helping either. So either I gotta add more solder to these pins, more fresh solder, or I'm going to need to add heat, because maybe there's just a huge ground plane on this card. I can't tell how many layers it is. Sometimes there's a marking on them. Although, yeah, there's a lot of ground plane on it, too. That might be why I'm having trouble. I may have to use hot air to remove the chips, but I can't hot air while I got a 386 on my workbench. So I don't think I'm going to be able to remove these RAM chips tonight. That'll probably be a separate repair, or maybe I'll do it on Dave's stream on Sunday. Oh, actually, I think I did get solder out of one of those. Oh. Oh, actually, I did manage to get solder out of one of the vias. Just wasn't the one that's on the ground plane. It was just hard to see. Well, let me give the desolder station another try. I think I'm going to end up probably working on this video card on Dave's stream, because it looks like I've got sockets, and it looks like I've got RAM that might be close enough to compatible to see if replacing the RAM fixes the graphics issue. I guess socketing it'll, even if it's not compatible, I can try to find some. I guess maybe the desolder station is actually removing solder from the non-ground pins. I was kind of trying to remove these in a way that wouldn't preclude me from reusing them if I find that the bad one. Because the thing is, I suspect only one of these RAMs is actually bad. Because I suspect the underline under the mouse cursor is a side effect of the bad RAM chip, and probably this video card probably does. It's probably trying to use acceleration for the mouse cursor. Okay, well, some of these pins aren't desoldering as well as others. But I know that was one 2D acceleration feature some graphics card has, was a accelerated mouse cursor. And maybe the registers for that are in the first RAM bank. All right. Worst comes to worst, I'll use hot air, or I'll just use the clip and remove the pins method. Because I guess if I can't reuse the memory chips, it's not the end of the world. This card, I can switch it to 200 or 512K mode. I mean, if it really came down to it, it would still be usable with 512K of RAM. Yeah, I think this is probably going to be a Dave stream project. Because I need more space on my workbench to really work on this card to get these RAM chips out. Yeah. Oh, night, Dave. Well, at least you'll know what I'll probably work on during your stream, because I am curious if I can get this card working again. After all, the Orchid Technology Fahrenheit 1280 Plus was a decent card. I mean, I don't think it was a top performer, but it wasn't a bottom tier card either. I got it because the reviews kind of seemed to indicate it was just a decent all-around card. These memory chips are not going to come off without a fight, apparently. Yeah, they're, okay, they're putting up a fight. So I will just have to do this. Do this when I have a little more time to remove them, or just probably get to the point where I'll just clip the pins and not try to save the pins and just replace the 4 RAM chips. I mean, the RAM is still obtainable. They're not making more of it, but it's not unobtainium yet, so I guess if I've got to lose those 4 RAM chips to save the video card, I guess it's not the worst deal in the world. But yeah, they're not coming off easily, so. A dual Sing Labs ET4000, wow. You know, I almost bought a Sing Labs ET4000 or 4000X. And then for some reason I decided to get this card instead. Probably because it was cheaper. A decent performance for cheap, or the card that eBay sellers know is better at a higher price. I mean, seriously, there's no. Yeah, I do try to see if I can find things like that off eBay, but there's no e-waste places around me where I can even go see to look. I might have to go up to I'm going to go up Chris's direction. Well, Jeremy, sometimes when you're trying to get multiple components at once to make a video, you go cheap on some things. Besides, what's to say that the ET4000 card that I was looking at wasn't also going to be a dud? Because it might have actually been the same seller. Actually, you know, I think I did buy one at one point, but the card arrived in, like, yeah, I think I did buy one from an eBay seller. It kind of has me, the experience has me hesitating to buy video cards on eBay because I don't remember which seller it was, but their picture was of a card that was all nice looking, and the card I received had rust all over it. And by rust all over it, I mean rust all over it. I mean, it even had rusty IC pins. It was like, it was eBay basura. I returned it. I returned it as not as described because they didn't disclaim in their auction listing that cards might be rusty. I mean, the ISA bracket was rusty, chip pins were rusty. It was, and the card didn't work. I think I did stick it in a computer to see if it even worked, and it didn't work. So obviously, they just pulled it out of some computer they scrapped. They didn't even test it. And the listing did say it was tested working, or actually it probably said something more along the lines of worked last time it was used. So yeah, Chris, I kind of have a date in mind. I'll let you know, and I cannot read Italian. Interesting link, Jeremy, but I sure can't read Italian to know what exactly I'm looking at. Is this an ISA card for duplicating cassette data cassettes? I mean, 30 euros for that might not be the worst price in the world. Oh, the description's in English. Arco duplicate disk ISA card for IBM systems. Also comes with a floppy disk. I didn't realize the description was in English. I was trying to look at some of the Italian parts at the top. I have no idea what that does. Yeah, that's weird. IDE drive duplicator. Oh. Well, why do you need one that goes in the computer? Seems like that would be something you could make that you could just go outside the computer. I mean, obviously, given the fact that it's only an 8-bit card, and IDE is 16 bits, it's obviously not using the IDE, the ISA bus for data transfers. It looks like this card does the copies all by itself. That is really weird. Have to dedicate a computer to run the copy software when in reality, it looks like everything's done on that card. Yeah, that is pretty weird. Perhaps it was cheaper, yeah. Well, I guess that goes to what you're saying. Cheaper's not always better. Probably was cheaper to make it a PC card. Well, I guess I'll, since we're coming up on 12 o'clock and my computer is running a memory test, kind of looks like I'm probably just going to let this run overnight and see what it does on this memory. Because there's not much else I can do now. Because, well, the 16-bit video card, I'm getting tired, but I need the full workbench to rework the 16-bit ISA card. I need the workbench to bring down the Emerson 386, and plus burning some ROMs for that will take longer. I'll probably save that for one of my live streams. I'll work on the video card on Dave's stream on Sunday. And yeah, I'm running a memory test, and it's only 41% of the way through. And it's been running for... Oh. Well, I don't know how long it's been running for. But it's probably not going to be done in 15 minutes. And I'm starting to yawn, so... I think this is the point where I'm just going to go ahead and call the stream, and I'll let this memory test run overnight. That'll probably let it get a couple passes in, see what it does. But at least got a battery on the 386, which is cool, so it'll save its clock and save its settings. Put the Mr. BIOS in it. And... well, I guess tried to get a better video card and, well, installed Windows 95, tried to install a better video card, have corrupted the registry in Windows 95. So, might be bad RAM or marginal RAM. I don't know. It could be the Mr. BIOS. Maybe the Mr. BIOS was the bad thing to do. Maybe this other controller card has a problem with it too. I don't know. We'll see. Yep, Jeremy, I will check my email, but, yeah, I'll check it. I'm not ordering boards tonight, but, yeah, I'll see what you've sent. But yeah, oh, hey, Jack68K, I didn't see you there in the chat. But yeah, so I guess, Windows 95 will install on a 386 DX40, but there's still seemingly something wrong with it. And I have to say that even though you all talked me out of recapping it tonight, if I run this memory test and it doesn't find any memory errors, but this thing's still unstable, it's getting recapped. Because something's getting recapped. I mean, maybe I'll start with the controller cards, because I think they all use about the same capacitor, and there are some electrolytics on the controller cards. But if I'm still having instability problems, and it's not the RAM, then I think I am going to have to recap it, because the only other, I mean, I don't think it's the processor, I don't think it's the math coprocessor. It could be the chipset, could be the controller card, but I've bought all the controller cards I'm going to at the moment for this system. I can only buy so many. So if you like what you've seen, I guess don't forget to hit that like button, smash that like button, totally obliterate that like button. Don't forget to subscribe so that you know when I go live next, or if maybe I can actually get some scripted videos out, I'll get those out. And, well, I guess if you're really feeling generous, there's always the coffee tips, because I do like coffee, and I also seem to buy a lot of parts to try. Who knows? Maybe I need to update my goal. I know the goal I've got on screen's old. In fact, I probably should have just hidden it because it's old. But who knows, maybe those coffee tips might actually help me buy something better than I would have otherwise for one of these computers. I don't know, like maybe an actual name brand controller card. Although this is like a DTC controller card, which I thought was maybe halfway decent, but Yeah, I guess if those caps don't pan out, I'll look at the logic chips. They are in a really inconvenient spot. They will be really hard to get out with those ISA slots where they are. I guess that is something I can consider. The problem is, though, for those 3 Gold Star controller cards are rock solid. Well, maybe I guess they are. I mean, I still think there might be a bad 74 LS chip on that controller card, but probably one that's for the ROM. But yeah, the 74 series logic chips on this 386 motherboard, one of them I could fairly easily remove. The other 3 are going to be difficult. One of them, I don't think any of them I'll be able to do the pin clip method. I'm really hesitant to use hot air, so I'm hoping I can get them desoldered without hot air. Because I think hot air caused the problems with the first PC chips motherboard I had, or actually it was a Pine Technologies. And I'm running low on 386 motherboards. I could also use a better webcam. Yeah, I wish I had a better webcam. This thing's driving me nuts as of late. So anyways, yeah, plenty of things that I can maybe try on this 386 board. I'm hoping I can get it working. I know there's some people out there like, why get a 386 running? But, well, it's what a lot of people had. And it does seem like if I can get this one running, it's a pretty snappy one with a 40 megahertz 386. Oh, well, yeah, I guess only 3 between the ISA slots on this board. I should feel lucky. I'd probably rather recap it first because they are, at least the one thing is on this this 386 board, all 4 logic chips are marked Texas Instruments. And now, I guess that's not to say that they are Texas Instruments, but I don't think I've seen PC chips relabel things like that. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, they did relabel, well, but they didn't relabel cache chips to make them fake. They made fake chips. I don't know, maybe they aren't Texas Instruments chips. Maybe PC chips did sleazy things like rebrand logic chips. Who knows? Maybe they're actually from MOSTech. But after all, the BIOS that was in the system, there's the BIOS chip. There's no AMI label on it. In fact, it doesn't look like there was an AMI label on it because I don't see any signs of old adhesive, so I don't know. Maybe they aren't Texas Instruments logic chips. They're just going to be really difficult to replace. I'd be afraid I'd have to remove the 2 ISA slots to get them out. So I'd probably recap this board before I tried removing the logic chips. If only I had a way to test logic chips in circuit, that would be really cool. Like some sort of clip I could, with the system powered down, but could clip a tester around the logic chip and test it to see if it was good before removing it. That'd be really cool. I don't know if such a thing exists. And if it did, it'd probably be expensive because there are probably not many of them on eBay. But anyways, that's the stream. That's all I have. This memory test is probably going to take at least another 30 minutes, if not an hour, to get to the point where I'd have one pass. And that's not to say that this memory isn't marginal enough that one pass isn't enough. So with that, I'm going to put my fingers over the correct button in OBS Studio, and I'm going to wish everyone a great rest of your evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time it is where you are, and happy vintage computing. Take care. Computerized Start is brought to you by my awesome patrons on Patreon and by your tips and memberships on Ko-fi. These and other channel supporters make my live streams possible. You too can become a channel supporter with tiers starting at just $1. Don't forget to smash that like button. And if you've liked what you've seen, subscribe and turn on notifications so that you don't miss the next video or live stream. And as always, thank you for all your support. I hope to see you next time. And until then, take care.